Welcome to the Mainstreet Show. I'm your host, Ram Scott. Today we're joined by Rick Hinderer, the owner of Hinderer Knives. It's so great to have you here. Thank you for coming in today, Rick.
Thanks for having me.
So to start off, can you take us back to the beginning? What compelled you to start crafting tools and knives?
Well, back in 1987 is when I started, made my first knife, and I actually was a horse trainer and a blacksmith or farrier. I was turning horseshoes one day, and I got bored and decided to make a knife. And the reason was because a good friend of mine was retiring from the military, and I wanted to buy him a knife, but I didn't have that much money back then to do that. So I thought, well, being that I've always been crafty, I'll make him a knife. And so that first knife, I forged it out of a plow point, and that was the first knife.
Very resourceful.
Yeah.
So what were the biggest challenges working in the original turkey coop shop?
Well, the biggest challenge came at wintertime, and it was, again, it was a turkey house, so it was real small, kind of like a chicken house, and there was no heat in there. So when I finally got a heater to put in there, the problem was that it heated everything up, but the rats kind of liked that. So the rats were like running races on across the ceiling, which is right above my head. So that was kind of a challenge, but it was warm. It was a good place to get in and out of the weather and craft my knives.
All right. Well, after the turkey coop, how did you decide that the world needed the XM18?
Well, there's quite a few years in between the turkey coop and the XM18, or back then. The XM18 didn't come along until the early 2000s. So in the a little over a decade since then, I made mostly art knives. In other words, these are kind of like really fancy pieces of art, but they're still knives. I went from making what I call using knives, which is knives that people are used to or know about, that you use for hunting and fishing and things like that. And then I went into crafting more art knives. And then when the XM18 came along, that was really, it derived out of my work as a volunteer firefighter. I joined the volunteer fire department in 1997, and through a lot of my experiences, I found that there was a need for really strong, overbuilt knives for firefighters, when we go to different calls. And of course that transfers over to the everyday carry market, or EDC market.
So after your first successful design, what audience feedback or market demand drove your next major product?
Well, after that first design that really hit, honestly, it was a lot of other ideas that I had that I wanted to put out there. And yeah, it was driven a lot by the customer. I wouldn't say demand, but the customer wants. And I listened to a lot of those different factors, especially from some groups from like law enforcement, military, hunters, fishermen, things like that. What do they like in a knife? What's missing in the marketplace? And I took that more as a sign that I want to design different knives that'll fit their jobs better.
So I've heard you have collaborated with other brands, such as Zero Tolerance. What do you look for in a collaboration partner, and how do you ensure that you still have some creative liberty there?
The collaboration projects, those are, actually I have a lot of creative, because what they do, how it works is a company kind of finds you. So you don't go out seeking, they're like, hey, we really like your designs. The very first company that I collaborated with was Gerber Knives and Benchmade Knives, and that was actually at the exact same time. And Gerber, they liked the design that I was doing at the time, and they contacted me, and we worked it out on this knife, a particular design. And so once we get together and they produce it, they market it, everything, my job is only the design part. And that worked really well through Kershaw Knives, ZT, which is a part of Kershaw. It's our high-end line, and a few other I designed for a company in Italy also. So those are really fun projects, because it enabled me back then to get my designs and my reputation and my name out there even more. Especially when one of my Kershaw designs ended up in Walmart, and that was really fun. The first time I went to a Walmart store and seen my name, that was pretty cool. But also one of my Kershaw designs was Amazon's top seller for 5 years straight. So that really propelled my my reputation as a knife designer.
Sounds like you've had a lot of success there.
Yeah.
So when a new super steel comes out, what is your ultimate test for whether it's truly tough enough for your brand?
Well, the one thing that you have to be careful with was getting on the flavor of the month steel. So the new super steel I look at when a new steel comes out, I look at it as is it going to be better? What properties make it better? In what area? Whether it's edge holding, toughness, corrosion resistance. There's a lot of factors that go into a good cutlery steel. And also it really matters what is the knife going to be used for. That really, in other words, you don't want a really good steel that has extra hardness for edge holding. You don't want that in a large knife that you're going to be using for prying and stuff because it may break. And consequently also you don't want a tough steel used in a razor blade because it's not going to have it depends a lot. And I study it a lot and I do a lot of testing before I settle on the next new steel for Hinderer Knives.
So if you had to go back in time to yourself starting in the chicken coop, what advice would you give to yourself?
That's a really wide-ranging question. The advice that I would give to myself is just I don't know. I mean the success of the company today and what I've done, I would probably do the exact same thing to get where I'm at today, but it's not without stress. So whenever you're building a company, there's always that. I'm a craftsman, I'm an artist. With managing a company, that's a whole different set. So probably I would tell myself to maybe go to school and learn some courses in business. The art part and the craftsmanship part, that was what the talents that God gave me. Whereas running a company, not so much.
Yeah, maybe got a business partner a little earlier, maybe.
Well, the thing about it is business partners are, that's one thing I never wanted to do. I figured if I was going to make it, I want to make it on my own. And plus, I'm responsible for myself, and you get somebody else. In fact, it's the same when I started hiring employees. Now, all of a sudden, I'm responsible for somebody else. What I come up with, design-wise, what I do, the decisions that I make for the company affects a lot more than just me. It affects my employees and their families.
Well, finally, could you tell us what inspired your logo to be a horse?
Well, again, I was a horse trainer. I started, I've always been a horseman since I was a small kid, and I was training horses by the time I was 11, 12 years old. So horses had always been a part of my life. I met my wife through horses. Her family owned a horse breeding operation there in Wayne County. And literally I lived in a horse barn for almost 20 years. So I lived, ate, and slept horses. I trained horses. I was a blacksmith, and I lived in a horse barn. So obviously my logo had to have a horse. Because of that background. And if you noticed in the logo, the mane in the horse is flames, and that came from my time as a volunteer firefighter. And so I put them both together. I had a graphic artist that does logos. I had him come up with something that had both of my loves. That's part of my life, and that's what he came up with, and I think he did a fantastic job. I think it's one of the most recognizable logos, definitely in the knife industry.
It's very sweet. You have some horses yourself. Can you tell me their names?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a purebred Frisian. His name's Coolio, and he's the latest horse that I got, big horse. And I have a smaller pony. It's actually my wife. His name's Diamond. And we have a horse named Phantom, which is perfect for Halloween time. And then one of my favorite horses is, he was one of my first ones that I got when I got back into horses. His name's Sundance. And then I have Cash. And my other Frisian, his name is, well, we call him the Galoot, but just the way his personality. But his name's Blackjack. And then we have a mare, and her name is Rocky, and Champ. And I think that's it. Or no, I'm sorry, done it. One last one.
Awesome. Well, that's all the time we have for today, Rick. Thank you so much for coming out and chatting with me.
Thanks for having me.
And that's it for this episode of the Mainstreet Show. Make sure to follow us across all social media platforms at AUTV Ashland. I'm your host, Graham Scott. Thanks for watching.